that you can record just in general. I follow a amazing measurement marketer, Chris Mercer. He goes by Mercer. And one of the big things he says is truth is in the trend, power is in the pattern. And you are measuring the trend of behaviors over time in marketing. In community, you are measuring the trend of sentiment over time. So what is that going to look like? Well, as a person feels more and more comfortable self-disclosing, they're going to use more organic language. They're going to talk a lot more. Their rate of inclusion is going to increase, but so will the length of their post. So can we use that? And then there's going to be the amount of social glue that we have between individuals. So is one person talking to achieve 3 people in the community only? And is that a lot of engagement? Or are they talking to 30 people and not really as much? And what does that mean for your community specifically? There's a switch happening here. And one of the fun things about that is that these are not marketing metrics, right? They're cultural metrics. You are playing the anthropologist in your community, and you are using social scientific processes to measure a social scientific community.
So I'm sure that you've had some interesting conversations as you work with clients and you build out analytics dashboards that they might be a tough sell, to say the least. So give me, I guess, like a counter argument people give you. I'm sure they've given several, but give me like one, a popular one, and then sort of how you kind of address it.
Sure. Correlation does not equal causation.
Mm-hmm.
Hear that all the time. All the time. It's a social science problem. And don't get me wrong, it is a problem. But a lot of people are just like, right, but how do you know? And here's the way that I view this. There is a pyramid of accuracy, right? You can have all of the data coming in, it's just spilling through. Someone just went and recorded all of the things or wrote down all the things or did all the interviews, and there's raw data just all over your table. It's very broad and it's not very useful. It's not being used to answer any problems or questions. So you sift through it and now you have less data. You're in the middle tier of that pyramid, but it's more useful now. You're starting to get a sense of the trends and the patterns, and you're starting to throw out what's not useful. And then as you climb up that, you get like the specific pieces of data that are really, really important to you. And you're like, pretty sure there's something about this. There is a trend. There is a pattern. And everyone goes, okay, I'm going to go to my CEO with this information. And the CEO says, right, but it's not causation. So the next thing they do is they say, okay, well, I need to figure out something more concrete. I'm not measuring it well enough. I need a higher level of resolution. That's not actually an answer, because once you get so high that you are metrics obsessed and you are worried about the accuracy of your data, you have lost the thread on what you're trying to do completely. You are trying to answer a question that has an action. So instead of worrying about gross amounts of accuracy in your data, which doesn't exist, you're talking about measuring people, do it again. The exact same thing that you did in a second spot, in a second scope, just do it again and again and again. And once you repeat the same process and you have 4 corollary actions that are all telling you the same thing and one that's different, what is the resolution of your action? It just skyrocketed without you ever having to be accurate. Social science is not about causation. It's about enough correlation to infer causation.
Yeah. And I find that sometimes, and this could just be my own bias, I guess, given my work, but I find that community work is often held to kind of a stricter set of standards when it comes to data and measurement than some other fields or other areas of the company that operate and also cost money and have other goals or do different things that aren't always just sales driven or as clean as like I called Barry told me on the phone, I'll take 50 widgets. Therefore, I'm going to claim the 50 widgets. Forget the fact Barry might have Googled it, looked at the community already, read about it, and then talked to you. But okay. Community just seems to have a hard standard sometimes, and that can make it tough. And it's a tough thing to push back on.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to sound like a whiner. You don't want to sound like someone who's like, saying compare, what about us? You don't want to be like, well, you let Barry get off the hook on this, or you let Barry do this.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've tried to do in the past is just to agree on sort of core ideas. You talked about 20 KPIs, like let's hone in on what's important here, what we're trying to measure, and let's see how the community ties to that. Of course, in my case, I had some people change the core metric 3 times in like a year. So that didn't help me decide how to handle it, but yeah.
Yeah. And kind of going back to that same conversation about like, stop trying to prove causation, because causation is an end result of doing correlation over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep changing